lot of times as an afterthought, you might want to add some things in. You've got a chord, this is in E minor with a G in the bass. You've got two fingers that are just hanging out. And if you hear a line, maybe you can get it. Here's an ascending line cliche. It's a little low, but now what I have for most of the other examples, I've kind of structured it a little bit differently, where the next maybe 3 lines are similar in that we've got a fixed melody line, and then the rest of it I just I'm going through different techniques, and anything that seems of interest, I'll stop and discuss it a little bit. So we have another line that seems to be really in the key of F again. It's a little scale fragment you hear everybody play. That kind of pattern, right? Now here I've got the chromatic descending line with some pull-offs just to give it a little bit more character, like slurs. It gives it a little more character than this. To me, that the phrasing isn't all that interesting. The articulation's not. But if you try to get, it sounds more legato and it swings more, rather than the stiff sort of thing. Okay, so another thing that you could do maybe with that line is double the harmonic rhythm, and in this case we're also that other concept I was talking about with sustaining 2 notes, maybe getting a 3-note structure. It's possible to do that with example 2, variation 2 on page 3 has this. Even though I have a unison, it's a certain sound to that that's going to be different than if I did. Okay, so I've got this. Here's the 3 notes ringing together. Okay, so I'm going to go on now to just explore some different type of ideas that are related, but with no fixed line in mind here. Figure 1, again, D minor. Okay, so what I'm doing there with my 3rd finger is I'm kind of crossing. It may seem like an awkward fingering. You could use 4 and 3, but again, I'm trying to keep as much stuff ringing as possible. That's like a little asterisk on the E note. You get a 3-note thing, whereas you could have played it like, right, and it would have just been like a horn. But you're getting more polyphonic textures. Okay, next example. That's a weird fingering for this one. Using my 3rd finger. You've heard that a million times, right? The major line cliche from the 5th. Here we're leaving the bass note out. Again, the slurs, the pull-off. Now, if you can let everything ring, it's going to be a much different effect than, even though they're both great. It just depends on what you're trying to do. Okay. chord, a closed voicing. And here's a real short one, figure 4. Really short one. But I like it because it introduces a cool interval, which is this major 7 interval. There's different ways to finger this too, so explore that. You could bar it. But again, you get that ringing thing. So I can move that guy around a little bit. Let's think of a tune maybe. We're doing Alone Together like we were doing before. We go. Here we're going to talk about in a second is building up a gradual chord. Instead of playing a scale like, I'm going to do this and have it ring. And you get a chord instead of. So that way I'm building my chords on the fly instead of, you know, like playing a chord like this, right? It's converging into a chord. Which I feel is a great way to get counterpoint going. You get a 3. That's a D minor voicing right there that I converged into. Just starting with this note D, and then maybe shooting, I'm shooting for that 5th down there. You get a chord at the end. So what I've done, I think it's on the last page of these examples, is put a couple of my favorite chords down in sort of maybe modern chord structures that are kind of fun to work in. Figure 5 on page 4, let me play that. This is kind of like a Killer Joe type of progression. This kind of progression. So I'm doing a whole lot with just 2 fingers right there. And I'm shooting for the bass note too. Just not hearing a bass. If I had a bass player here, I might not do that. See, and that's a convoluted fingering, to say the least. But I think in order to be a stickler, again, at sustaining, you need to do weird things like that. If you want to do that, it's an interesting thing to me. Coming back down. Exercise B is a different pattern. We got